Well, good afternoon. I am LaNissir James. I'm one of the HSLDA High School Educational Consultants, and I'm very, very excited today about our topic. It's called No Stress Record Keeping. And I am so excited to be here with HSLDA Special Needs Consultant, Krisa Winn, who's going to be joining me on this topic. How are you, Krisa?
Hey, I'm doing well, LaNissir. Good to see you.
Yes, this is going to be exciting. We want to find out how long you've been homeschooling, where you're homeschooling from. Please go to the chat. We want to make this very interactive, right? We want this to be kind of a conversation with Lanissa and Krissa on the subjects of no stress record keeping. So this is exciting. So tell us where you are. And we really, really are excited about encouraging you today and getting a chance to learn what kind of things maybe stress you out about record keeping. So if you're ready to get going, I see Ohio here. Do you see that? Hey,
I
Mandy in
do.
Ohio. We're
Yay.
excited. We're
Hi,
excited.
Mandy.
So tell us where you are watching from, what state, maybe how long you've been homeschooling. If you want to tell us the grades, ages, that's fine as well. We would love to support you in your homeschooling. So without
Absolutely.
further ado, Krista, are you ready?
Sure. Let's
Tell
do
us.
it.
Well, we know that you have been serving homeschoolers for over 10 years, and that's so very exciting. And we want to find out what part of the country you're in and a little bit about your family and your homeschool journey.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm joining you today from South Arkansas. It's a rainy day here in Arkansas, and I've been with HSLDA though for over 10 years. My background was that of a classroom teacher. I was a classroom teacher for 20 some years, and then the Lord blessed us with children. We've got two children now. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. And then I left my teaching position. I didn't know what I was going to do. And God just opened up the door for me to come and join everybody here at HSLDA. So I've been serving as a special needs consultant since 2012. And then a couple of years ago, also began working with our early years, so preschool through eighth grade for typically developing learners, and then special needs. We just never know. Sometimes we talk to people that just had a baby with Down syndrome, and then someone else that's got a 25-year-old son with cerebral palsy. So just all ages and stages. But it's been really so rewarding to work with some amazing people here at HSLDA, and so much knowledge that we're really excited to share with you guys today.
This is going to be so much fun. And I see people just coming in the chat from all over, almost every state. It's exciting. Arizona.
Oh,
I see
great.
Michelle in Maine. Hi, Maine. I'm excited about Maine being on as well. Arizona. We have California. I saw Ohio. This is going to be great. I think no matter what part of the country you're listening in from, we all know how stressful paperwork can be and
Mhm.
record keeping can be. So we're going to tackle that topic for you today. And Krista and I are going to be sharing some of our tips and tricks on this topic. Well, I'm LaNissir James and I'm in Maryland. And it's a fairly nice day in Maryland. I think we're going to get past the 50s, right? Mid 50s today, which is exciting. Spring is almost coming. And
Mhm.
I'm a homeschool mom of seven. I've graduated three already, and I only have four more to go. Krista, I
Wow.
only have four more to go.
Awesome. You're
So,
amazing, Lanissa.
so I'm excited. I'm one of the high school educational consultants, and I'm also the outreach coordinator at HSLDA. And I love talking about homeschooling K through 12 too, because my oldest is 25 and my youngest is 7. So I still have a first grader. You got to love that. So three who have
Wow.
graduated already. So we're going to talk about high school. I have two who are currently in high school, one in middle school, and one who's a first grader. So
Mhm.
I'm very excited. And one of my sons is seeing a speech pathology, so he's doing some special needs stuff. And I have questions for you, Chris. I have questions.
Okay.
So
Bring it
let's
on.
talk about it. This is
Mhm.
no stress record keeping. So let me ask a question to you, Krista. Does
Okay.
no stress and record keeping, should that be in the same sentence? Is it possible
Mm.
to take the stress out of record keeping?
Well,
Yes or no?
I think it can. You can. I'm I think one of the first things that's so important. Sometimes fear paralyzes us, no matter what the topic is, whether it's record keeping or homeschooling or buying a new car, whatever, sometimes fear can paralyze. So find out what's required in your state. We're talking to people all over the country, and different states have different requirements. So I think the first step to take out the stress is find out what you actually have to do to be in compliance with your state laws. The next thing I think is just do it. That helps. Just start. Some people, myself included, I am the queen of procrastination. I'm like, I'll take care of that. I'll write that down later.
Right.
Do it now, and that can help as well. I do see a question. I don't know if you've seen that. How detailed does our record keeping need to be? Recording our daily schedule seems tedious and unnecessary, is it? So
Well,
I
you just
think
touched on that. Yeah, just
yeah,
what's
I mean,
required, right?
honestly, yeah, I think, first of all, know what you have to do. Most states don't tell you, like, what you have to do daily. So I think do what makes sense for you daily. I do think it's helpful. Maybe this is the old school teacher in me, but I do think it's helpful to have a plan. And I kind of do my plans on the weekend so I know what's ahead. Some people do like the whole year, and some people buy curriculum plans, programs that already have a plan for the year in place. In other words, they're like week one, this is what you're going to cover. So that's part of record keeping is not just grades, but actually your plans. What are you going to do? And having a record of what you've done. So I would some now as a classroom teacher, I had to write out in math. The student will be able to, make a pattern for kindergarten, for instance. I don't do that, and in a homeschool setting, I don't think that's terribly important that you have to write out, like, learning objectives every day, but I think it's good to know where you're going. So, whatever you need to do for yourself, I think that might be the answer. Would you
Yes.
agree, LaNissir, as far as anything
Absolutely,
else?
absolutely. At HSLDA, we're here. We have the legal team that can help you answer those questions. I think that's the downside to getting ideas to online is because you may be following someone in a different state who may have more requirements than you. And so that makes it confusing. So my favorite reason why I love no stress and record keeping is because of the file 13. Do you know that there is a trash file
Mm,
that you can file, right? You don't have to keep everything, and we're going to talk
right.
about that. And
Yeah.
having 7 kids, it's difficult because you can't keep everything. So I am the person who loves the binder. We're going to talk
Mhm,
about what we should be keeping and what we should get rid of. But I love to have just one binder for each of the students. And that's for
mhm.
the whole year. And then sometimes we like to recycle our binders from year to year. And I just kind of put the subjects, put a hole punch. If not, I put it in the trash. In fact, if it doesn't fit in my binder, I put it in the trash just
That's awesome. That's
because
a good way to
paper
do it.
because paper will take over you. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a good thing to do, like, to give yourself permission to just limit it to a binder because it can get out of control so
Yes.
easily.
Yes.
Definitely. It
Yes.
does. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Krista, let's talk about what we need. What do we need to keep? What are we record keeping? Give me a what you call your short list of what you think we need to keep a record of.
Well, I think, bottom like basic is your plans. What did you do? So after, when it's all said and done, what did you do? Samples of your kids' work. And like LaNissir's just keeping hers in a binder. I especially when my kids were younger, I knew what I wanted to keep samples of. When they were in kindergarten, I wanted them to draw a picture of themselves, and I had them do that a couple of times every couple of months because that told a neat story about growth. Like how you draw a picture the first day that you start kindergarten to the end is going to tell a story. I had them write their names. So I had in mind what I was looking for. So I think your lesson plans, any grades that you took, I mean, I didn't. I didn't really take a lot of grades when my kids were little, but I wanted samples of what they did. So if I gave them like a review page, I might keep that. Um, for special needs, some of the families that we're talking to, they're coming from public school and they have old IEPs or 504 plans. I encourage families to keep those. Even though you're not using them, they're not active anymore. It's a form of documentation. So I think that's important to keep that. Attendance, however you're doing attendance, even if it's not required, I think that it helps to have attendance, especially for our special needs families. LaNissir, I know it's not as important maybe for others. Some states you have to track time logs and how much time you're spending. Not every state is like that. So attendance, lesson plans, any grades or samples of work, and then any documentation or plans that you had through the school system or paperwork from an educational psychologist if your child's been evaluated. Comments from therapists, like you've got a son that's doing some speech therapy. So if that speech therapist is giving you any kind of progress reports, like every 6 to 8 weeks, I would hold on to those.
Right. And you could also get those little folders to go inside the binder. I'm still getting everybody on my binder system. Everybody doesn't like binders, but you could put it in the little pocket folder because every house kind of has this dump place where mail goes. And so it stacks up. So I kind of like to keep all the records in one place. The only thing I would add to your list is a transcript. Now, I know, I'm the high school girl, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the transcript, but keeping a record of your transcript each year, right, is always important because maybe it's sports, maybe it's a scholarship, maybe it's, a letter of recommendation. You just kind of have that one piece of paper transcript. And if you need help with transcript, make sure you reach out to us at HSLDA because our high school department is ready to help you. And so I think your list is pretty good, Krisa. Just those are the things. That's if it's required for you. Like I've never kept attendance at all. I guess we're all here, right? But if it's not required for your state, but like you said, if I'm not dealing with, a special needs child on a regular basis, so maybe I don't have that. So I think what we're really saying is know what you need to keep and don't keep any more than that, right? And if you're the organized type, you could also categorize it, right? Trips for occupational therapy, special needs or whatever. So at least you can find the papers that you're looking for. And I dare say evidence of your work because you never know when grandma's going to stop by, right? Right?
Yes.
And how's the homeschooling going?
Definitely. Let me show you.
Let me show you.
Yes.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yes.
I love that. Michelle says she's from Maine. She says, I'm naturally unorganized. The binder system saves me. I love the way, I love that way of recording. Yes. And so, Michelle, I hope you jump on the binder because it's the best way to do it, at least for me. And listen, the only downside is that you just have to have a hole puncher or people who know how to punch holes. Because if those holes are off, right, now you have a mess on your hands, right? I love that.
Definitely.
So what other kind of organizing tips can you give when it comes down to homeschooling and record keeping? I don't know about you, but if you're a homeschool mom, you probably collect a lot of books. Yes. Right? A lot of curriculum. How do you organize, Krisa? How do you organize it?
Well, I have like a place where we kind of homeschooled. I'm not currently homeschooling actually my girls right now, but when we did, we homeschooled all over the place. But I had a place for our materials, and I taught my girls where everything went, like where we keep the pencils. So I wasn't constantly doing that. I'm sure with 7 kids, you learned that pretty quickly, that you taught them to be aware of their surroundings so that they're taking care of their materials and not you running all over the place trying to do it. But I have shelves for my books. I still have some of my favorites that I'm holding on to. But definitely a place for everything. My girls also had like their pencil boxes, and they had their own little large tubs too that we kept some things in. One thing that this isn't really record keeping, but one thing that I share with families too are like the rolling carts, kind of like scrapbooking carts with different drawers. And that was a way for that's a way for some families to organize their time and to really teach their child independence, because each shelf represents a time of day. And so when they open the shelf, that's where their stuff is, and they know exactly what to do. And so I think one of the things that helps no stress overall is to teach your kids routines, teach your kids systems, so that they know what's going on, and that makes your job easier as well.
I love that. And I love things organized, but unfortunately, when you're a family of nine, it just does not work out that way. And
Right.
so, I believe that organization has its highs and lows, and we need to be gentle with ourselves
Mm,
because there's times, right, when we're in the heat of, we're having our classical, we're having our co-op, it's in the middle of the school year, things begin to pile up. But then eventually you catch up, right? Spring cleaning is coming, right? And then you can catch up. So I find myself in these kind of highs and lows of organization. It is my
mhm,
personal favorite. However, I don't always get to enjoy things all organized. We have a lot
mm.
of people in our house. And so there's a
Yes.
lot going on. We also road school. There's a lot going on. So I think that if you're watching and you're homeschooling, allow some of those highs and lows to be okay. Like one of the things when I started homeschooling my daughter at the end of fourth grade, we've been homeschooling now for about 17, 18 years. No one was home. The kids weren't home during the day. So naturally, a house that doesn't have kids in it during the day is going to be cleaner. But when you have kids ripping through rooms and pulling out books and papers, you have to give yourself an element of relaxation to understand that things are not going to always be neat. So when we're talking about organization, we're just talking about some gentle systems that you can put in place to just handle the subject of record keeping. Now, I saw a
Mhm.
question. Someone said, what are you saving in the binders? For me, I'm just putting samples because in my state you have to have samples of your work. So I'm just putting samples of each subject, samples of Bible, samples of history, samples of math, et cetera, et cetera. And I do use a couple of curriculums where we're online. And so we'll use graph paper if we want to use some samples. So that's usually what goes in. It's for to show for a portfolio review. And that's only because it's required in my state. Now, if you're in a state that you don't have to do portfolio reviews, then you're really just saving samples for grandma, right?
Mm.
Just for just being able to see. I love what you said, the progress of how your
Mhm.
child writes from one year to the next. I got to try that, Krista. That I think that's wonderful because that's a progress. That's a work in progress, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so I
Definitely. I
think
was
that
going to jump in since you mentioned portfolios. That is a really great way to, it's not really an assessment, but it's a way to assess or to consider what progress did we make this year, which that's what it's all about. It's not just, we don't do record keeping, we don't keep samples of things just for the sake of keeping samples. You do it because you're trying to learn about your children, to figure out this is where they're at and this is where I need to go. And so portfolios are a great way to do that. And so, and those can be as unique as the individual. Like your binder is a portfolio, but
yes.
some people might need a box for a portfolio, so they might need like a tub. It can be as unique as you are. But I always like to keep like list of books that we've read, list of field trips that we went on, different things like that. And one thing that I did learn, like a lot of library systems will keep a record of books that you've checked out. And so then that's a great way. I don't have to physically write it down. I can just like print that off of the library website, and I've got that I can throw in to say, hey, these are all the books I've read. And we joke about, portfolios, this is just for, showing grandma what we're doing. And honestly, I mean, that is a big deal. And I talk to people pretty regularly that are being scrutinized for homeschooling. And you do want to show that this is for real. Like we are really working with our children. We are really making progress. But the other thing, I found it encouraging when I would go through the binder. I'm not nearly as organized as you are, LaNissir. Some years I did a binder, some years I did a box, but I loved going through those because I forgot. I would say, "Oh, I completely forgot that we did this or that we had this experience." And so I love that.
Yeah.
Um, One other thing that came to mind as well, while I'm thinking about it, I want to say it is that I think a really good, even beyond samples of your child's work. Sometimes especially when my kids were younger, I know I keep saying that, but this is when it is pretty appropriate. I would sometimes have a clipboard with paper on it, and I would just make notes of things that I was seeing. And maybe it was academic and maybe it wasn't. It might have been like, Gracie tied her shoes for the first time today, and just note that, and just other
Nice.
things beyond academics that were important to me. I had been a former kindergarten teacher for like 10 years, and none of my kids knew how to tie their shoes. So like teaching my children to tie their shoes was a big deal. I wanted to make sure I did that. So anyway, just making notes of things that aren't necessarily academic is another way to keep record of what you're doing in your homeschool.
I love that. It's basically like a mom box. I think every mom has a mom
Mhm.
box of a onesie that was important to her, right? I still have the little bracelets from the hospital, just the things that are important. So if you're at a state where you don't have to, great. And, just keep the things that are relevant. And if you have little children around or young people around like I do, and they do their artwork, you can't get caught throwing that out, Krista. You can't get
I
caught
take
throwing it
pictures
out.
of it. I take pictures of it
Yeah.
sometimes so that I can digitally, keep it,
I love that
because
idea.
yeah, yeah,
I
it
love
does
that.
get it gets overwhelming
It
sometimes.
does. It
Yeah,
does. And so
yeah.
you have to figure out how much you can handle in terms of paperwork. So now
Mhm,
I want to go on to talk about slightly older kids. As they get older, kids also need to show evidence that they're making progress, right? I think it's
mhm,
important, right? Sometimes I love what you said, Krista. You said sometimes you don't see the progress that you're making, or you want to see the progress that you're making. So
mhm.
I love that part of record keeping where, you don't throw out the pages as you're going through the grammar book. You keep them so that you can see that pages are getting done. And I
Mhm.
typically don't throw out within the current year. Do you? Do you keep the current year?
I
How
um
long?
I start maybe pitching some of it if something that I've torn out after maybe a semester. And then I'll say, I'm just going to keep the chapter review, or I'm just going to keep the test instead of every single little thing. If it's something that we've torn out. I mean, if
Right.
it's a workbook and it's intact, I'll probably keep the workbook. Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
what I've done in the past.
I love that. And I guess I'm also the recycle girl too, because when you have a lot of children, you have this mindset that you need to keep for the younger, right? Or write on
Mm.
paper so you can keep the book for your sister or
Oh,
your brother.
sure. Right.
So,
Absolutely.
we kind of have that going on. And I think that is also a big part of what, creates the pile up as well.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
love to, kind of have my active and inactive bins going on in the house, where there's school books that I'm saving for another kid. And it's kind of inactive because we're not using it this year, but active enough that I may use it another year. So
Right.
these are just organization ideas. Let's jump to
Hmm.
high school because I really want to talk. I hear people sending questions about high school.
I
Someone
see
asked,
transcripts.
um, right, I saw about the transcripts, right? And so the answer is that HSLDA transcript service is the best, right? And you don't have to be a member. You can go right to our website at hslda.org and have a great transcript done. And it's formatted and it also calculates the GPA for you. Yay.
Yay.
Now, if you're one of our HSLDA members, which we hope you'll go to hslda.org/join, then you have access to our educational consultants, and then we'll review your transcript. Chris, I have never seen
Yeah.
a transcript that didn't have an error.
Oh.
And so, right, because it's like your own baby, you're so close to it, you don't see it
Mm,
until somebody you release and let somebody else look at it, and
mm,
they catch something, and you've been looking at that same piece of paper and never saw it. And
right.
so if you're a
Yeah.
member, we do have a transcript review service, which I love. And members take advantage of having someone else take a look at their document. And so the transcript is important. And the best way to do the years, I love to plan on the transcript. Like you think about it, we're in February. And so
Mhm.
we're already past the halfway point for this year. You can start putting on what your plan is for the upcoming year for our high school students. So if you have a ninth
Mhm.
grader who's going to be finishing in a couple of months, it's okay to start thinking about now what you're going to do next year. And the transcript
Mhm.
is the perfect place because classes stack upon each other, right? Algebra
Mhm.
usually goes to geometry, geometry usually
Mhm.
goes to algebra 2, and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So that's what I love. I love using the transcript. Now, be kind to yourself because maybe what you plan doesn't necessarily work out, but it's far better to have a plan than to not have a plan at all. Now, Krisa, you work with special needs students, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes there's they need accommodations. Do you want to talk
Right.
about that and how it looks different?
Yes. So a lot of students that have identified learning disabilities, they might need accommodations. So accommodations are anything that you're doing to support your student so that they can show you what they know or what they understand. For instance, maybe you have a student that has poor fine motor development. Handwriting is really difficult, or visual motor issues, and so handwriting is difficult. An accommodation might be that you allow them to use voice to print on Word documents to give their answers, or you might allow them to give their answers orally in some situations. So that's an accommodation. Um, we don't recommend writing out that you've allowed accommodations on a transcript or a report card if you're doing a report card. But we do encourage you to document that you're doing accommodations. So you could do that by, if you're a member of HSLDA, another plug for membership, we send out a checklist of various accommodations that you could just print out, date it at the top, put your child's name, and then just check mark, yes, I'm allowing this accommodation and this accommodation for this school year. Um, Modifications are something that you might be allowing as well. Modifying does make a change to the curriculum. So this might be like a ninth grader, but they're working in math at maybe fourth or fifth grade level. They're still taking a math course, but it's not high school level work. You're still going to put that on the high school transcript. I mean, it's basically documenting this is what we did, and then, but you might name it general math or something like that, and then create another document that describes what is general math, what were you doing in general math. And so we just encourage you to do that. You don't have to put glaring, my child has special needs or my child has a learning disability. If there's a situation where that transcript's going to, be in official use, probably someone's going to ask you, why do I not see algebra 1, algebra 2, and then you have to decide about disclosing. But pretty much just the format of the transcript is the same. It's just then what you might see on the transcript as far as the courses would be different possibly. But that's another, and that there's like an added layer of record keeping, because you do want to document or keep record of accommodations that you have in place, or that description of courses would document or keep record of how the curriculum was different for that child. Does that answer that question and help?
Yes, that's
Okay.
very good. That's very good. And I think even students who are not getting accommodations, we use course descriptions.
Mm,
It's not required by law here in the state of Maryland, but we use course descriptions because I want to know, what did I use for English? What did I use for math? What did I use for science? What did I use for history? What unique electives did I do for my student? I'm big on unique electives. And I want evidence of that. And so it's on a course description. It's only one piece of paper, I will tell you. But this
right.
is a form of record keeping. So because you forget. And what
Mhm.
happens? Maybe you have an NCAA athlete, or maybe you have a college or university who asks for a course description. Now, here is my easy, no stress way to have a course description. Are you ready for this?
I'm
Krista,
ready.
give me a drum roll. This is going to be a drum roll. This is going to be
I don't know. I don't know if you can hear that.
copy paste. Copy
Ah,
paste. The publishers have such a great description of the curriculum that you're probably using. The best way to have a course description is to copy and paste it and let
okay.
that be your course description. You got the name of the course, you know who the ISBN number, and you have a great description that they've spent a lot of marketing money to come up with. And so just copy paste that, and then that's it. You can forget about it. So if
Love
you're
it.
in high school and you're teaching 6 or 7 classes, just copy paste the course the description of that course, and a lot of times online. And so I love to do that. It's always a lot of fun, and I have my teens do it. It's just easy peasy, and so that way you don't have to worry about forgetting, because it's just copy paste. And if you use multiple, like maybe in your English you're using something for writing, something for grammar, just copy paste all that under your English 9 or your English 10, etc. So that's
Love
my favorite, no stress record keeping. So now you're in high school, you have a course description for each of the classes that you've taken. Let's talk a little bit about grades, if you don't mind. Let's talk about taking the stress out of grading. Okay, so we're talking about older students. We kind of both agree when they're young, you don't have to get too worried about grading. But as they get older, you want to make sure that you're keeping them accountable, right?
it.
So, what do
Mhm.
you do to take the stress out of grading?
Well, since I'm not really the greatest at math, I recommend a 90 to 100 grading scale, 10-point grading
There
scale.
you go.
Keep it simple that way. Um, so I don't know. I think again, and maybe not everyone is like this, but I just put off grading things. And I think getting out of the mindset of, oh, this is one more thing I have to do, to no, this helps to inform you and inform your child on how they're doing. You know,
Yes.
that kind of helps to take the stress out of it and not to I for me, when I put things off, um, then my list gets longer and I get more stressed. And when it comes right down to it, I could have gotten that done in like 2 minutes. But
Right.
instead, I've got 15 2-minute projects that are now taking me.
It stacks up and we're all stressed out. All right, well, here's my tip to it. You
Okay.
guys remember and we call this, if you've ever been to one of our HSLDA high school workshops, we talk about the low, medium, and high pressure grading system. And I want to
Oh,
share it with you today because the grading system should match the student. Right, Krista?
mm,
So if you
mm,
have a special needs student, you may not be marking every single thing wrong or whatever. I think, or if you have a student who is planning to go to a highly selective, vigorous college, perhaps they need that pressure to prepare them. So I think
mm,
the parent really has to make the decision. What kind of pressure do I want on the grading system? Do I want a low pressure? Do I want a medium pressure? Or do I want a high pressure? And
mm,
so the low pressure system is kind of like the check plus, the check minus, right?
mm,
All check
mhm,
pluses, what'd you say, 90 to 100?
mm,
The checks, right, are your B's,
mhm,
and
mhm.
the check minuses are your C's. And so I love to, have some aspect of their work that is low pressure, right? They
Mm,
do it in
mhm.
colleges and universities where the
Right.
professor's like, turn it in, just turn it
Yeah,
in.
not
I'm gonna
everything is gonna be meticulously graded.
Right.
Absolutely.
Turn it
Mhm.
in. And so, when my kids do their own work, I kind of based on them returning it on time and all those good things that matter, right? And in our homeschooling, then you just have a simple system. Now, when you want to add a little bit more, what I call medium pressure, maybe you have some quizzes. I love what you said. You use certain things that may count as your quiz. I love the summary sheet, and say my
Mhm.
summary sheet is going to be the quiz because it summarizes what happened, the
Mhm.
last 4 chapters, etc. And so you can decide how you want to grade those. Do
Yeah.
you want to do the 17 over 20, or do you want to do the percentage? It's totally up to you. Versus our vigorous student, where you are calculating each grade, you know, added them all up, dividing them so you can get an average. But understand that even no matter what student you have, you don't want to put everything in one category. All
Mhm.
universities settings have a rubric. Am I saying it right? A rubric?
Rubric. A
Rubric.
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 Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
have so much for daily work, so much for tests, so much as quizzes, right? We were,
Mhm.
could you imagine a college student going out and they only had one assignment and it decided the whole grade? So I think sometimes as parents, we forget that, right? So we want to make sure that we have it set up so that kids know exactly what to expect, especially teens, right?
Yes.
Especially
Yes.
teens. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
kind of like my hot idea of how we deal with grading. And again, let it match your student. Let it match your
Mhm.
student. If your student is not going on to college and they've decided to take a career route, does it matter that you spent all day trying to meticulously grade a paper? You have to make sure that you count your battles. So that's kind
Yes.
of my 2 cents. Anything else you want to say on that topic? Anybody have any questions about that topic?
Well, just that, you mentioned rubrics, just overall for the class, how the grade's going to be achieved, because different things could have more weight towards the grade than others. But you can also use rubrics to grade. Like, I especially love it for writing projects, where
Yes.
this is how you get full credit for spelling. This is how you get full credit for creativity, and so on. And so, as far as like no stress on that, we have articles on our website, hslda.org, where you can find links to sample rubrics. Um, Also, just talking about the website and stress free, we have sample transcripts on our website as well. And then someone was asking about, oh, I can't remember. There was one other thing about I wanted to mention. I'm kind of getting you off subject a little bit, LaNissir, but going back to transcripts and special needs, some kids are going to take longer to take a class, if to finish a class. Maybe they need 18 months to finish pre-algebra, or algebra 1 or something. So we also have a sample, it's a template for a transcript that we call the subject transcript. So you have a transcript is usually 1 page, right? You're the high school lady.
Yes.
So you've got your freshman, your sophomore, your junior, your senior year. But the subject transcript is great for kids that are going to take more than a year, or even more than 4 years to complete high school, because then we've got a block for math, we've got a block for language arts, and a block for sciences, and so forth. So it tells the story, but it does it concisely, like on 1 page. And that's also available on our website, or you can call one of us and we can send you a sample if you're a member of HSLDA. So I
I
just wanted
love
to
it.
throw that in as well as another option, especially for kids with special needs.
I love that. So many resources. And we have a section on our website that's www.hslda.org/teach my kids/record keeping. And it has a lot of the things that we're talking about today in visuals so that you can kind of become familiar with a lot of the concepts of record keeping. So I
Mhm.
love everything that you're saying. And I think that for high school, if we really get excited about what the future holds in terms of what they need to keep, I want to give you another little list as they prepare for college, right? We were talking about
Mm.
special needs students. Let's
Help
talk
us out.
about the college student. What do you need? What kind of records do you need? How about a high school resume? One of my favorites. It's the place where
Mm.
you can record your volunteer service, all those extracurricular things that you're doing. That doesn't go on the academic transcript. You can record it there. And what I love is that when you're asking someone to write a letter of recommendation for you, you can hand them the high school resume and your transcript, and they know everything about you. And
That's
then they can write a
awesome.
wonderful letter of recommendation. So that's one of my favorites. Also, if you're preparing, don't forget to not only keep record of your volunteer. Maybe you're working on the Common App, or you're doing an application, or maybe you're working on essays. You want to put maybe your college bound notebook together so that
Mm.
you have all of your college stuff. I have a junior this year I have a freshman in college, a junior in college, and one who graduated. But I also have a junior in high school. So we're back at it again, Krisa. And so, my son LJ, he's getting his college notebook together where
Mm.
he's keeping a list of his visits to the college, his questions, the costs, etc., the things he needs to know about that college. And maybe at the end of, by the time November comes and those applications go in, he may have 7 different colleges, but everything is inside the binder,
The
right?
binder.
The binder. Right? Because I don't know about you, it gets out of control. You can't find it. You don't
Mm.
know where it went. Is it just my house?
Mhm.
You don't know where it went.
No,
It was here.
not
It was
just your house.
here.
I
So
love that.
we want to take some of your questions. Mandy says, where do you go to have access to the download for accommodations modification checkoff sheet? Is that on our website?
Um, that I don't believe that's on our website, but it's something that we send out regularly to our members upon request. So yeah, I don't think we have that there. Something that we're working on, and I don't know if it will be added to the website or not, but we're coming up with like an accommodations plan. So you might be familiar in public school. Public schools write IEPs, individualized education programs, for kids that are eligible for services. They also write 504 plans, which are like accommodations that a student might need for various reasons. So we have on our website a template for members to download that is what we call an SEP. It's a student education plan. So that student education plan is a place where you can write out specific goals that are just critical that you've got to focus on this year. It's usually for 1 year. And then there's a place for you to write down accommodations that you're allowing and any kind of therapy that your child's getting. You're not required to create an SEP, a student education plan, but it helps because it helps you stay focused on what you're working on this year. It's a good way to communicate to others, maybe a teacher at co-op. Hey, this is where my son really needs some extra support. This is what we're doing at home. Could you consider doing that for him here in co-op setting or something like that? So that's available on our website as well. So I wanted to kind of mention that to you. But we're also now trying to think, what if we just wanted to create a plan that just talked about accommodations? So that's kind of in the works as well. So if it's not on our website, please call us and we can send those things to you.
Yes, that's exciting. Someone else asked, so you create a transcript for each year? And the answer is yes. Just 1 year, right? What you did for ninth grade, that's 1 year. And then 10th grade. So now you have a transcript with ninth and 10th together. And then that's just 1 year. And then 11th grade, now your transcript is ninth, 10th, and 11th. So each year, yes, the answer to your question is you create a transcript. Here's another question that might be for you, Krisa. Mia says, how do you recommend handling mandated standardized testing when the state has no specific accommodations or opt out for disabilities,
Mm,
specifically when they cannot read, write, or speak, right? It says
right.
public schools can opt out, but homeschoolers can't. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, there are a few states that unfortunately is the case. States like Virginia, which I used to live in Virginia, is awesome because you have an evaluator option in lieu of a standardized test. But I guess in states where it's just required, you have a couple of options. Number one, you can just do the test and just know it is what it is. And it's kind of silly. I think some of the states require that you do the test, but you're not required to turn it in to anyone. You're just required to have it in case someone wants to see it. And so then again, that's why it's good to have documentation of this is why my 13-year-old scored the way they did on this test because she has this medical situation going on or she has this global delay. The other thing is that there are tests that a licensed practitioner can administer that are oral. They're usually very quick to administer, and like maybe 45 minutes to an hour. It's more interactive, and it still is standardized, and it is an achievement test, but it's just presented in a more developmentally appropriate way. It's going to cost more. I wouldn't venture to say how much, but it's like ballpark, maybe $100 to $150, as opposed to a standardized test, which is usually anywhere. The lowest I've ever seen is 25 up to 40. So there's more cost involved, but that would be an option as well.
Love that. Here's another question, Krisa. I'm going to take this question. It says, what about dual enrollment credits on your transcript? Yes, we love
I'll let you
homeschool
take that one.
students who are working on their associate degree and their high school diploma at the same time. It's exciting. Or they're just taking dual enrollment classes. That's going to go on your transcript. But of course, you have a transcript from the community college. So that's going to go on your high school binder, right? So your high school 9th through 12th binder has your course description, right? Maybe a grade sheet for each quarter is totally up to you, or a grade sheet for the year is totally up to you. But also you want that transcript from the dual enrollment so that you know exactly what classes they took and what the GPA is, because that information needs to A, go on the transcript, and B, you also want to make sure that you're able to talk about it while you're doing your Common App or et cetera, because those classes usually, not in all cases, will count towards your bachelor's degree. And granted, the college or university will decide how the transfer works, but it does take away from the 120 credits you need for a bachelor's degree. So you always keep record of that. So that's definitely something you want to keep, your copy of the dual enrollment. And if you contact us in our office in the high school department, we'll show you how to add those dual enrollment classes along with your high school classes, because there's a way that it works, right? And we'll do a workshop later coming up on transcripts. Me and Clarissa are going to be together talking about transcripts, but exactly what it all looks like so that you can bring the material together. But the answer to your question is put it in your high school binder. And if you're not a binder, maybe you're a file person, or Krisa, like they said, they're a box person. Put it in your box. Just put it all in the high school box, right? Put a lid on it, put it in the closet. All right. So whatever.
I'm going to ask you a question, LaNissir,
Yes.
because I've read this on our legal pages where they make recommendations about record keeping for every state. So almost always it says for the elementary through middle school years, keep your records for 2 years. That's their recommendation. If you want to keep it longer, you can. But then it says record keeping, anything for high school, keep it forever. Is that right? Like
I do
transcript?
still have my and granted, it's not every piece of paper. We're just talking about the high level course descriptions, right? Samples of your
Transcript.
grades and the transcript, right? Absolutely. And that
Standardized
dual
tests,
enrollment.
maybe.
What
Oh,
was the
yes.
last thing you said?
Standardized test scores.
Yes, yes, your SAT, ACT,
Mhm.
CLT, right. And it's just a binder, and it really becomes that one little keepsake of the high school years. That turned into, of course, we have graduation materials available for you also on the HSLDA website, but I kind of keep it with copy of the diploma, the mom box, right? I call it the mom box.
I love that.
Just the
Yes.
things you keep.
Mhm.
So, one last question before we get ready to get out of here, Krista.
Okay.
What happens when your records get behind?
Um,
What do you do?
well, it's kind of hard, and that kind of takes us full circle back to the beginning, and it's, just do it. I mean, sometimes you have to recreate, and that's why it's good to do it as you go along instead of having to rethink what was I doing in 2018. It's hard, especially when you have more than one kid, but it's hard when you have just even one kid. And I have heard stories about moms that for whatever reason they never kept a transcript, and their son got into college somehow. I don't know how without the transcript, but then they needed the transcript for some big level job that he was going to get as a 27-year-old, and she's like, okay, having to recreate it. So I don't know what that advice is. It's just you're going to do the best you can do to recreate what was done. Do you have
Right.
better advice than that? I don't know what else to say.
Well,
Do
when you
it
get
as you go along.
behind, yeah, you acknowledge that you're behind. I've been behind before in paperwork, and it's not, it's not the worst thing in the world because one thing about paper, especially in this digital age, paper exists, right? And so it's
Mhm.
still there. It's really about what is your sort project looking like? How are you getting through the paper? Is it something that you need or is it something that's trash? Really making a decision about what you're looking for. And if you're in a situation where you're behind, take it one step at a time. Deal with the ninth grade year, get closure to your ninth grade year, and then open up your 10th grade year. I think sometimes when we open up too many windows at one time, we get overwhelmed.
Yes.
So really I assess, hey, I'm behind on this. I haven't kept up with this particular year. I want to focus in on my oldest student out of all of them, right?
Mm,
And
mhm,
and the most recent year they completed because I remember that one the most. Whatever it
mhm.
takes, but just put one foot in front of the other and find other organized people. Everybody's not the organized type. Let's just
Right.
understand that
Mhm.
personality is not for everyone. But hopefully, you have a friend who loves to organize, loves to clean. Whoever comes up and cleans over at your house, put them in charge of your organization, and
Yes.
get somebody to help you too. So that always is exciting.
Mhm.
There was a question that somebody posted. Teresa says, I've heard that some state jobs require a public high school diploma for employment. Is that the case, or would a GED be a better way to go? And that's why I love you guys that are watching. You want to connect with our HSLDA legal team because a GED is not required. You can use your high school, homeschool diploma, but you really need to make sure you're girded up by our legal department so that you understand exactly what the rules are for your state. So
Mhm.
I believe they'll post it in the chat, HSLDA, www.hslda.org/homeschool
Le
law, legal,
legal.
legal.
Legal, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so you can pose your question. If you're one of our members, we're happy to answer those questions for you. Sometimes we take roads that we don't need to take, for our students, and it makes it difficult. But all of my kids have been able to graduate, get jobs, and they're doing just fine. And many of your kids are as well. So
Mhm.
it's just so very exciting. And then Michelle also asked, she says, where can I go to seek more information on preparing for high school? Well, that's our department. You can contact us at hslda.org. If you're not a member, just go to hslda.org/join, become a member. I think it's something like $14, right? I think it's
A
like
month.
$14 a month, right?
I think so.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, that is just unbelievable.
Close.
Yeah,
Close.
everybody needs to be at HSLDA member because we're here to support you. And sometimes people call and they're just crying, right? But you're talking
Mhm.
to homeschool mamas, so we understand. So call us, and then we can help walk you through some of those processes. And any other department you want to talk about before we go?
I think I just want to encourage everybody. This is doable. And I love what you were saying about, finding someone who loves organization, to come alongside and help you. As I mentioned at the very beginning, some of you may not have heard this, but I was a classroom teacher for 20 some years. And one thing that I learned as a classroom teacher very early on was there is no reason for me to invent the wheel. Like I don't have to think up some new way to do something. I could walk across the hall and talk to a lady that had been doing it for 20 years.
Yes.
So you got your lady who's been doing this for 20 years right here, on the other end of the phone. Call us. Because we've been there and we can help you. So please don't do this alone. And then the other thing I would just encourage you again, as the queen of procrastination, don't procrastinate when it comes to record keeping. Just
Yes.
do it. Baby steps, prioritize. We've got tools on our website to help you, or we can send you templates for report cards if you want that, for rubrics if you want that, for an SEP if you want to create that for your special needs kiddo, transcripts for all kinds of different situations. We've got you covered.
Got you covered. I love that. I don't have anything to add to that. That's a wonderful, wonderful close, Clarissa. I'm calling you Clarissa, Krissa.
That's okay.
Um,
Exactly.
That's because we're going to be back soon. They'll give you the schedule, but
with
we're going to be talking
Clarissa.
about transcripts soon, and that's exciting. But I want you to know that if you have specific questions, you need advice, you need encouragement, reach out to us at www.hslda.org/join. We're here to support you. Oh my goodness, this has been great. We knew it was going to go so much. It's going to be so much fun being together, right, Krisa?
Yes, absolutely. Good to see you, LaNissir.
It's great to see you as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being with us. Continue to post. If you may have questions later, they'll come back through and make sure that all your questions gets answered. We just want to encourage you that don't be stressed out about record keeping, right? Let your record keeping be no stress and make it work out for you and your family. We want to thank you for watching today, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for
Bye.
now.